Okay, there we go. Is my mic working now? Okay. That was a little strange. I was playing Xenogears. I thought this was a good opening song. I do love that game. I decided to replay it, so I had it in my head all day, and I figured, why not open with it? Now, as you all know, the Epstein files were just unsealed, and I wanted to read through them. I don't know if this is a good format for a stream even. I was thinking about it. This is kind of a little experimental. So I have some clips and stuff lined up that I want to go through, and I want to read through the transcript. People who don't know me very well personally don't know that I take my investigations very seriously. I really do. I will go through and I'll pick things apart, and I'll literally go through almost every single document that was unsealed. I've done this with a lot of other stuff, and I was thinking, how do I incorporate this into a live stream? How do I incorporate doing this into a live stream? Because I did this with when the Finders docs were unsealed. I did just privately, all by myself. I went through, I read the entire thing. It was like 500 and something pages altogether. And I read it, and I took little excerpts out, and I put together, and I put a whole thing together for myself to eventually do a stream on. It never happened. So this is kind of like a test run. And I don't know if the audience is curious, but we'll start off with a clip. Then we'll go from there and see how interested the audience is in going through all of these court filings. I'm very curious. And maybe you guys will catch stuff that I won't even catch. So the first thing... Oh, nope. So this is the first thing I wanted to watch. People don't already know. I am a tinfoil hat type person. I believe in a lot of conspiracies. And Jeffrey Epstein is a very mysterious character. Some music to back me up on this. Jeffrey Epstein, very mysterious character. Seems to have a lot of connections with government officials all over the world. Multiple videos, multiple pictures with monarchs all over the globe. Of course, Randy Andy. Randy Andy is our number one suspect on that list. He has been in multiple pictures with Epstein, supposedly fucked multiple women with Epstein, young, very young, barely legal, massages, the whole deal. Used to pal all over the world with Epstein. Top government officials seemingly connected very heavily to Epstein. Harvard seemingly has very strong connections with Epstein. People really, like physicists are being invited to his house. Why that would be, why is Jeffrey Epstein courting Ethan Hawking? A little mysterious. Especially he was known as a hedge fund manager. Last I knew, had a lot of mysterious money. A lot of mysterious connections that couldn't really be explained. He thought he was very smart, and he thought all of these things, but came off as a complete phony to many of these people when they retell these stories. So that also comes off very suspicious. I don't know. Well, let's get into the clip.
Claiming something is a conspiracy theory doesn't necessarily make it false. Not anymore. And the more that comes out about Epstein, including still very mysterious circumstances surrounding his death in custody, means that I'm willing to at least consider alternative narratives other than the one being fed to us through official channels. Now, joining me now is the author and investigative journalist, Vicky Ward, the author of...
Should we watch the whole thing? Or should I skip ahead to the most interesting part of this? Press 1 to remove Persip's voice box. Jeez, you guys are angry tonight. All right. So I'll take that as we'll go to the most interesting part of this interview. When they do the panel segment.
mentioned in there, but do you think politicians and others should explain their exact links with Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, for example, I'll give you a story. I was having dinner, this is a name-dropping story, with Caroline Kennedy, the former president's daughter, and her husband, and
we want to go back.
And you're also named in these released documents today. How do you respond to this?
Well, first of all, the woman who accused me has now admitted that she may have confused me with someone else.
May have
been a case of mistaken.
I don't know if anybody's...
And she's dropped over.
Listen, guys, I don't know if anybody is confusing this guy's ugly fucking face to anybody else's, but who knows what kind of hideous deformities were on these flights on Epstein's jet. I mean, who knows what the fuck was going on?
For legal charges. I first met Jeffrey Epstein. I was introduced to him by the lady Rothschild.
I would have never hung around with Epstein.
And
you don't know me well.
She asked me to meet him because he was a major contributor at Harvard. And I agreed to meet with him and went to some seminars that he conducted at Harvard, with the president of Harvard, with major.
Dershowitz, of course, most notorious for somehow getting Epstein a sweetheart deal where he didn't even have to register as a sex offender in a real way, even though it got published. I mean, there were really no penalties and gave all the associates involved immunity, including himself. So him trying to get ahead, he's come out now and got ahead of the curve and said, I signed the petition to release his pair, even though they were going to be released anyway. He's hiding very, very strategically behind him writing a letter to say, unredact the documents, release the documents. Release all of them because he wants to claim some kind of innocence.
Academic figures, but from the day I met Jeffrey Epstein until the day he died, I have had sexual contact with one woman and one woman only, my wife. And so I was one of those who wanted these papers to be released. My disappointment is that only some have been released. I want everything to be released because they will confirm the fact that I did nothing wrong. And they would also shed light on other people who have been accused, some truthfully, some falsely. But the key point is that we can't have just partial releases of material. In many of these cases, the accusation is there, but the rebuttal is not there, or the disproof is not there. So for the public to form a valid judgment, you need a full release. I don't need that because in my case, the woman who accused me has admitted that she may have mistaken me for someone else, but I think others may very
listen to the language.
Need the full evidence to be.
She may have confused me.
Some don't want it because they may very well.
On that, just very quickly, I mean, President Clinton is mentioned.
You might have thought she was being felt up by another hideous, ugly Jew.
And he maintains he never visited Epstein's island. Donald Trump's also mentioned in there. But do you think politicians and others should explain their exact links with Jeffrey Epstein?
Yeah, for example, I'll give you a story. I was having dinner, this is a name-dropping story, with Caroline Kennedy, the former president's daughter, and her husband, and Bill Clinton, and another couple.
Shocker.
And the phone rang.
Shocker, the Clintons and the Kennedys were there. Big shock. Shock, ladies and gentlemen. The Clintons and the Kennedys were there, too.
This was on Martha's Vineyard. And he was president. The Secret Service gave him the phone. He went away, walked for about 15 minutes, had a vibrant conversation. I didn't hear it. And then he came back with the phone and saying, Alan, somebody wants to say hello to you. And he handed me the phone. It was Jeffrey Epstein. So this was way before any accusations or anything was suggested about Epstein. But obviously, Clinton and Epstein had a friendship. And in most cases, in my example, my friendship totally terminated the day the accusations came out. I did serve as his lawyer, but never again socialized with him once I had heard these accusations. I think that's probably true of some people. In other cases, people continued to have a friendship with him even after he served his sentence in prison. And they do have some explaining to do, but that doesn't prove guilty.
So this guy, he was friends with him, but still represented him as his lawyer. So he was still taking calls, was trying to get him off on all of these charges and was doing all of this stuff. But he had nothing to do with Epstein. Nothing to do with him after it was alleged, except make sure he didn't go to prison. You know, it had nothing to do with anything.
Just bad.
Got all his friends immunity. Nothing to do with Epstein.
Waiting in LA.
It wasn't personally to his benefit to make sure that all of the people named in this lawsuit were going to get immunity after. That wasn't in his benefit. He was completely innocent. It had nothing to do with him.
Eric, we heard earlier a bit of your description of Jeffrey Epstein. You met him once more than 20 years ago. Can you just quickly, briefly recap what your impression was?
Simply that he was introduced to me in a financial context. I was interested in investment in a so-called carry trade in foreign exchange. He didn't seem to have any interest in that. He said that he was a currency trader. There was no obvious evidence that he was a currency trader. He didn't speak like one. And he seemed to be very interested, as per the previous comment about Stephen Hawking, in my work on what might be called post-Einsteinian physics. In particular, if you check out his sponsorship of a conference that he held in the Virgin Islands called Confronting Gravity, he was very interested in science. This obviously is an area with potential military applications. It's
yes.
He was a very strange person from beginning to end.
So if you don't know who Weinstein is, Eric Weinstein is a very famous physicist from Harvard. And he did the self-dual Yang-Mills equations, which were about basically dimensional consistencies across higher dimensions. It would be very difficult for me to explain that. It's out of my purview. I only took up to like physics too. So that's a little out of my purview. I couldn't really do it any justice. But experimental really in the 90s was at like the precipice of physics at the cutting edge.
I don't really believe
when you say that he was a strange person. I mean, describe some of the things that were odd in that first meeting, that one meeting you had.
Sure. I don't hear anyone mention the fact that he used an American flag as a tablecloth, making his dinner table look like both a coffin and a trap for you to stain the flag of your own country.
This all sounds very interesting, doesn't it? It sounds, this guy's story is so completely insane. I actually believe every word that he's even said. I believe every word of this story.
He brought in a woman who I think he introduced as an heiress who was braless, that he bounced on his leg at a financial meeting in an attempt to create a distraction. The whole thing was...
I wish he'd go further into that story. What the fuck was going on there? Imagine it. I mean, it is a good distraction, right? You get a bitch on your knee and she's got no bra on and a little probably tight dress and her boobs are bouncing up and down in front of all these executives to distract from you not knowing what the fuck you're even talking about. I mean, it's kind of genius, really.
Completely surreal from beginning to end. I think one thing that you can learn about this,
especially if you notice, a lot of these guys are very successful, but they all look like trolls. So having like these really sexy, provocative women around, I mean, it's like a great distraction and enticement. So I mean, it really is like it's completely to entrap these people, which is fascinating to me.
Incredibly intriguing world. There was no hint. I think this was like 2003, 2004. So this is before he gets into trouble in Florida. And you know, the whole thing was like a scene out of a movie, and you both wanted to be nowhere close and to know everything about it. And I walked out of there, called my wife and said, I just met a human being who does not appear to be a normal human being. He appears to be a construct. Somebody appears to have constructed something that looks like a financier, but if you scratch the surface, doesn't behave like one, doesn't seem to know a lot about science, although he's very interested in science. Nothing made any sense. Up was down, left was right, black was white.
Yes, Weinstein
We're
could
going to have to take a short break,
could
but I want to keep
explain
all
the
three of you here
movement
because I want to
of
get back
Ghislaine's
after the
breasts
break
bouncing up
into
and
this
down
really crucial question of
in higher
who
dimensions.
Jeffrey Epstein actually might have been. Who do we think he was? We'll be talking about that and much more after the break. Welcome back to Uncensored. Still with me today are author and investigative journalist Vicky Ward, author of The War Against...
This guy loves Israel, by the way. He's the biggest Israel shill I've ever seen in my life. I mean, he would get down on his hands and knees and blow Mossad agents live on air. Just saying, bro.
The Jews and Jeffrey Epstein's former defense lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, and the physicist, Eric Weinstein. Let me just very quickly, Eric, I just wanted to ask you quickly what you were saying before the break. What is the actual allegation you're making?
I don't
Who
even
do you think
remember his
Jeffrey
name. I
Epstein
just remember
actually was?
I just remember this guy was like celebrating against Cenk Uyghur. He was just like celebrating Israel just bombing Gaza and killing tens of thousands of Palestinians. I mean, it was really in poor taste.
Don't know. That's a great question. But I knew that he wasn't who he said he was almost from
No
the instant
mention of Mossad. They're going to
started
push back
speaking to
against
him.
that when it's accused.
If I had to make a guess, and you're calling for speculation, I would say that he really belonged to what is almost certainly the covert operations community, and that he did not appear to have a prime broker. Nobody seemed to have traded with him.
Now look at the body language on Dershowitz as he's saying this. Look at the body language on I want you to examine closely. Here, we could even, I could enhance Dershowitz. I'll make him bigger.
Almost certainly the covert operations community.
Okay. Enhance him. We're going to make him nice and big. Look at the body language on Dershowitz.
And that he did not
Examine him,
appear
look.
to have a prime broker.
Gonna
Nobody
fix his
seemed to have
tie.
traded with him.
It's going to
Nobody
get very tight.
seems
Look at him.
to ask questions around
He's
him.
looking
So it's
around,
very
look,
suspicious.
very
that we don't, for
nervously
example,
looking around.
ask for Form 13F. If he was a major hedge fund trader, it's almost impossible to move through the markets without leaving a wake.
He's scuffling
If
around
you
in the
have to
chair.
speculate, I would say that he probably belonged to covert operations for one or more nations, and that what we're looking
No,
at.
look at him. Oh, he's
is a
shaking his
very
head and
strange-
smiling.
You can shake your head, Alan, but it's also the case that I don't necessarily believe that you stopped associating with him personally at the time of his conviction in Florida. Because,
Look at his
I
face.
think there are pictures of you at the
He's caught. Now he knows. He's like, uh-oh, this guy's going to fucking go for me. We're supposed to be Jews in arms. What the fuck are you doing, bro? What are you doing to me? You're going to come after me on this show? Dershowitz really caught out. He was real he thought he was with a nice coalition of Jews. And this Jew shill over here, the British guy, he didn't think anybody was going to call him out, but he was wrong. He was so wrong.
Program for Evolutionary Dynamics, socializing with Pinker, Trivers. I don't know. You tell me.
I'm going to have to go back to Alan Dershowitz on that. Alan Dershowitz, how do you respond?
All before that, no, he was not a member of any intelligence agencies. I'm quite sure of that. And he was not a hedge fund guy. In fact, once you never want to tell humorous stories about Jeffrey Epstein.
Look, even the blonde is like, is this guy for real?
For defamation.
Look at even the blonde's face. I mean, she looks like she might have a little cerebral palsy or something. She's got like a Laura Ingraham look where one side of her face is a little droopy, but you could even see on her face. She's just like, this old Jew is so full of shit.
He said, why did they call you a pedophile? He said, no, they called me a hedge fund guy. He was very upset at being called a hedge fund guy. I don't know what his financial business was, but I can be
I
relatively
don't know
certain
what
he
it was.
not an asset for the
Lie. It's a lie. You were his lawyer. Everything was probably disclosed. He's so lying. It's unbelievable. You know, his financial situation was all part of that lawsuit. So you're just going to lie on television like this when everybody knows that you know this because a lot of this stuff was released to you?
Can I just ask why,
This is the
Alan
first
Dershowitz,
time,
can I just
Alan,
ask
that
why
I
you're
have
so
some-
certain about this? Because it does seem to have been an intelligence gathering operation of some kind, or a compromat situation, or a blackmail situation, something like that, surely.
It's possible,
Surely.
but I never saw any evidence of that. He was a guy.
He never saw any evidence of blackmail. Epstein literally didn't go around and tell everybody that they're recorded on his island and all of his private trips, and they better watch their back if they say anything bad about him. Hundreds of people haven't testified to that. That never happened either. He doesn't know. He never told his lawyer that. Why would he tell his lawyer?
Guy from Brooklyn, grew up in Coney Island. He was very curious. He wasn't as
He's
smart
very
as he thought
curious.
he was. He didn't know as much about science as he thought he did. But I can tell you that people like Steven Pinker and people like Stephen Gould and people.
Listen how he turned something everybody was aware of into like, oh, he wasn't really that smart. He was just had all of these millions and millions, countless millions of dollars and hung around with all these rich people because he wasn't that bright. And he didn't know what he was doing. And he couldn't have possibly been placed there. He just makes the argument against himself so easy.
Like the president of Harvard thought he asked good questions during the seminars that we all attended. Those seminars, I never attended a seminar after I represented him. My relationship did terminate. I continued to take his phone calls after that. Look, I don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is. He was very, very, I didn't even want to meet him initially, but Lady Rothschild insisted. And then some people at Harvard said they.
Lady Rothschild forced me to meet Epstein. It's all the Rothschilds' fault. Listen to a Jew throw another Jew under the bus here. It was all the Rothschilds' fault. Lady Rothschild forced me to hang around and be the lawyer for Epstein. I didn't even want to do it. I didn't know anything about the guy.
They wanted me
This is great.
to put together some people to attend seminars of his. And I did that. And we learned a lot. I met people at Harvard that I had never known, even been on the faculty for 50 years, men and women.
Vicky Ward, let me just come back to Vicky Ward quickly. You've been waiting patiently, but I mean, a man who apparently boasted to associates that he had compromising material, film footage.
He couldn't be part of any kind of intelligence organization like, let's say, Mossad, like everybody's accused of him. That's not possible. Not possible.
And others of important individuals. And that's not the normal way in which anyone behaves, is it?
Right, Douglas. So, I mean, one thing we did learn in the papers that came out last night is that, he did, in some of the depositions, ask the women who claimed that they were sent out to men to give them very detailed descriptions of what had happened so that he could use it to blackmail them. I've never seen that spelled out quite so
that was the whole
specifically before. And then to your point about, the question, who was Jeffrey Epstein? Here's what we do know that is not speculative. He did know the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. He did know Mohammed bin Zayed, the ruler of the United Arab Emirates.
He partied with that guy.
He did know very well Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel. That pictures of
he's pictured with him like at least 50 times.
All of these men. There's a picture of him, I believe with the Pope. There was a picture
with the Pope.
A picture of him of all sorts.
Can you imagine that the Pope? That's just ridiculous on so many levels. Can you imagine Epstein has all these whores and stuff, and there's the Pope there, and the Pope is grabbing on these whores? I mean, that's insane. I hope video comes out of some of this stuff. Can you imagine the Pope with Jeffrey Epstein and there's like a debauched orgy going on with all this crazy shit? He's got Ghislaine on his knee, bouncing around. The tits are going up and down in front of the Pope. I mean, this is just insane.
World
Right.
leaders.
What do you think? What do you think he talked to the Pope about? Is Satan real? Imagine Jeffrey Epstein is sitting down with the Pope, and they're talking. They're talking about the reality of the devil in flesh, and there he is sitting right across from the fucking Pope. It's unreal.
And after he got out of jail in 2010, he was clever enough to use the connections he had with the academics, with the former president of Harvard, with these other world leaders to draw in other billionaires like Bill Gates. He understood how very rich, powerful people around the world connect with each other. He understood what very rich, powerful people want from each other. He understood how to connect the plutocracy and the elite. Does that mean he was an asset? I don't, there is speculation, but it is, he certainly was a manipulator of the 0.001%.
Eric Weinstein.
And how does somebody get into that position where they're somehow sitting with the Pope, sitting with the monarchs of various countries, of leaders of various countries? How does that happen? Plutocracy. Very interesting.
Quickly, just coming back to you, if I may, quickly. I think a name
he's
that
just
quite
some
a lot
dumb
of people
guy
have
from
been rather
Brooklyn
surprised to see
who
on
got
this
lucky,
list
I
for
guess.
Perhaps several reasons is the late Professor Stephen Hawking. What on earth are we meant to make of this?
Well, I mean, there's two separate things. One is that
I'll interrupt him before he goes into it. A lot of people knew about Stephen Hawking and Epstein. That was one of the big people that he courted for a long time. And I remember articles about that. I want to say in the late 90s to early 2000s about that.
the state of physics is bizarre in that it's one of the most consequential things you could possibly study for military purposes. And at the same time, it has been sort of more or less run into the ground. So Stephen Hawking was of interest probably for the same reason that Jeffrey Epstein was much more interested in talking to me about post-Einsteinian gravity than he was in talking about carry trades. And what Professor Dershowitz says is very strange to me because he advertised to me that he was a currency trader running a massive...
So Dershowitz said he was a currency trader, but he doesn't know anything about his business, but he's advertising him to people as a currency trader. Very interesting, Dershowitz. Examine Dershowitz's face again as he's accused of this. He looks very nervous to me.
Hedge fund out of Villard House in New York on Madison Avenue. And I dropped off documents there. So something is really not gelling. And one of the really interesting things would be to have a very extensive discussion.
Yes, Hawking did actually get, it's not adrenochrome. It was fetal stem cells injected into him. I don't remember obviously he died. So it didn't significantly help.
Discussions to try to figure out who this person is, because the person who presented himself to me was much more like the person who presented himself to Vicky than the person who presented himself to Alan Dershowitz. Now, what I would say is that he had also extensive contacts apparently with the Harvard mathematics department, both through Benedict Gross and through Martin Nowak. Harvard is all through this story, and as we are learning, Harvard is a very strange place. I was there for about 20 years. It is sort of an extension of the U.S. government in an unacknowledged capacity.
Yes, it is. I have a story for that.
The only university to really have the power to effectively change the narrative of academics, in particular, very consequential fields. Now, the other thing about Stephen Hawking that you...
So Harvard's a very interesting place. I don't know how many people in the audience have been to the Harvard campus. The Harvard campus is very different than other college campuses. I'd say it's a very free campus. If you were looking to enroll there, you're basically welcome wherever. They don't check you for student ID. You can get anywhere. they'll answer basically any question you have. Actually, it was a very friendly campus and very beautiful campus. But there was a certain part of the campus that was very mysterious. Maybe somebody wandered into there accidentally, just looking around, and was escorted very politely out. And there was things that were going on. A lot of people in suits and black sunglasses and stuff that was very suspicious happening on the Harvard campus. And I never went to Harvard. I did go to the campus, though. It was a very nice campus. You could just literally walk around in the Harvard campus, especially if you say you're interested in going there. You could just walk around. They don't really check you for ID, and they're actually very friendly. I will say that entirely. But I do know some people who went to Harvard, and they have also confirmed this, that there is a very strong influence from the federal government and very strong recruitment effort from the federal government on the Harvard campus. And there is active intelligence on the Harvard campus. So I happen to agree with everything that he just said from my own personal experience.
You should just know is you should probably do a search on the word San Bernardino and Stephen Hawking. It was not a secret that Professor Hawking had a very healthy appetite for life, and that this is not a new revelation, nor is the fact that he was associated with Jeffrey Epstein a new revelation. So that there's something very peculiar about the way in which we are forgetting a tremendous amount. I would also recommend looking up the name Craig Spence if the suggestion that this sounds like a completely insane idea that he was connected to intelligence. Craig Spence is the antecedent, apparently, of Jeffrey Epstein. It's just very strange that all these things made the papers. There's extensive documentation on the internet. We pretend that we don't know.
Let me just go quickly, Alan Dershowitz, I can see wanted to come back in.
Well, of course he knew Stephen Hawking's. There are newspaper reports about Stephen Hawking's having come to a conference on
Spence, a very interesting thing. I might pull up some stuff for Spence so we could go over Spence. I got to pull it up, though. I can't remember the story fresh enough where I don't know if I could tell it accurately.
his island where he had conferences. So far, not a single one of the names that have come out has surprised me. I had heard all of it before, but as the judge in the Second Circuit, Cabranes, once said, if there's an accusation made in court papers, it's to be less believed than an accusation made to the media. Because if the accusation is made to the media and it's false, you can sue.
Okay, I pulled up something for Craig Spence just to make sure I have everything right. So Craig Spence was a journalist who mysteriously killed himself. And it was published in the Washington Times that he was using a homosexual escort service that was raided mysteriously by the FBI. And he was under investigation by the Secret Service and for suspected credit card fraud and all of this stuff. And he mysteriously killed himself. And that was linked to officials basically in the Reagan and Bush administration at the time. And Epstein was directly implicated in that. And we'll go back to it, but I'll let this play a little bit because we're almost at the end.
Whereas if the accusation is made in court papers, there's a privilege. And so the judge said, look skeptically at accusations made in court papers. Look, I want everything out. I want all the theories out there, all the documents. Let the public decide. There are people who don't want things. They have things to hide. But people like me who have nothing to hide, who are not in any way embarrassed about any of these revelations, because we know we did nothing wrong. We're the ones who want all these papers out, all these documents out, and I'm hoping the judge will now release everything, every single document.
Alan, I find that very interesting because one of the things that I find very intriguing is that Jeffrey Epstein appeared to know all sorts of things about me that were not public and seemed to require almost a periscope into my life, in particular scientific things about me that probably flowed through the Harvard department that I was from which I took my PhD. I don't think that you're grasping how strong the circumstantial case is that this person was somehow attached to intelligence and may have benefited from things like state secret privilege and other forms of exotica in the law.
Let me finish with just asking a very quick but pretty important question of each of you, one by one, if you may, just very quickly. Of course, the other thing that makes the whole thing bizarre is the manner of his death. Did Jeffrey Epstein kill himself, Vicky?
I think that whatever
Obviously not. just to state it.
happened, he had help. It didn't happen just by himself.
Alan Dershowitz?
I have the same view. I think he probably killed himself, probably paid off guards to close the
He
TV
probably killed
and
himself.
other things, but
He paid off the guards so he could kill himself. That makes another Dershowitz really making a lot of sense in this interview. He obviously killed himself and paid off the guards so he could do it. His the injury to his spine isn't even indicative of suicide, but whatever.
I don't exclude the possibility that there may have been third parties involved. I'm not sure. That's why I want to complete everything coming out. Enough speculation, enough inference. Let's get to the facts.
And Eric Weinstein?
If I had to speculate, I would say that I've never met a person less likely to terminate his own life from embarrassment than Jeffrey Epstein. I would put him first on the list of a person who would be undaunted by being worldwide known as a sex offender.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vicky Ward in New York, Alan Dershowitz in Delaware, and Eric Weinstein in LA. It's a great pleasure to have you all on. Thank you.
There you go. I thought it was a great segment because it kind of lays it all out there. What time is it? How long have I been live? Almost 40 minutes already. He died to save the innocent elite. Well, yeah. So let's see. I wanted to look up Craig Spence. Let's see. Need some turn on some music here. Too intense. There we go. Little investigative music that I know won't get me flagged down off YouTube, at least not permanently. Let's see. Okay. So here's the story. I'll read it. I don't have any visual aid. So Spence had been linked to the White House guard. He let a bunch of guests into the White House for midnight tours. And they were like male prostitutes and stuff. It was like a mess. It was under President Bush. The first President Bush. In the 80s. Spence's home was wired with extensive surveillance equipment, and he would try to entice various rich people, government officials and stuff to engage with male prostitutes and use it as blackmail. And he was exposed for that. And but he had all of these extensive tapes basically, and he died under very mysterious circumstances. It has a lot of, and it turns out that a lot of that was linked back to the White House. Now, there are a lot of parallels there with Epstein, obviously, just to keep in mind. I'll check in on the chat here. Look up the Finder's case, Dutroux affair. What are you referencing specifically in the Finder's case? The Finder's case was definitely covered up by the federal government. A lot of that research that they were conducting and all of the evidence that they collected was mysteriously, when they raided that house in DC, all of that stuff mysteriously disappeared, and they closed the case. And then there was a whole bunch of other investigations where they went to farms where people were buried. There were anonymous tips. They couldn't find anything, even though the founder of the Finders was directly linked to like the CIA. That whole thing really went unfounded. One day I will go over the Finder stuff, I think. I don't know if that'll be that interesting for the audience, but I really would like to, because I have that all set up. I'd have to reread it again, though. Was that your dad, person? Is Brian done on the list? No, Brian is not on the list, Epstein Island. Jim covered the Finders long. He really didn't cover the Finders. He had some guy call in, and then they just talked about random garbage. They never really spoke about the Finders case in any capacity. If you look on the forums, I did an extensive write-up about the Finders case, even though nobody reads any of that stuff on the forums, and it's like buried. I did do an extensive write-up. That was a lot of what I like to post about, was reading conspiracies and stuff. But if you look up the thread, the Finder, you'll see a bunch of posts from me with extensive explanations and screenshots and stuff. Now, where was I? Where was I going to go from here? I only wanted to do about an hour. And I've done almost an hour. I'll pull up some of these transcripts now. Why isn't it working? Did I accidentally close what I wanted to open? Yes, I did. Okay, so this is the first thing in the deposit. And I don't know how interested people are in listening to me read this crap, but I was going to go through this extensively, so I'll read some of it here. We'll see if, I don't know. This audience, I never know what's going to work with you guys. So, plaintiff Virginia Goffrey, the defendant, again, accused to refused to answer numerous questions regarding sexual activity related to Jeffrey Epstein in contravention of this court order. Accordingly, the court should direct her to fully answer relevant questions. And then we have the huge pieces that are redacted, which is very curious. A lot of people speculating on who and why these specific things were redacted when, like, Bill Clinton isn't redacted. A lot of these names are not redacted of very prominent figures, but somebody somehow outranks like the former president stuff, which is kind of wild. I thought both the streams were pretty crap. Esoteric archivism. I really did. I thought they were complete crap. And I didn't think they talked about really anything, the specifics in the case, or really unbooking it. They just go, ooh, it's conspiracy, federal government, conspiracy. Oh, do you know there was another conspiracy like this? The coverage was very poor. They never really talked about the actual Finders files that were unsealed or anything in them. Clinton's name is already out there, that's why. Well, yes, but a lot of the names are already out there. A lot of these people are named in various articles and were redacted before. I mean, the whole reason that this was sealed to begin with was because these names were in here. So, yeah, I think the Bidens are probably definitely in there, especially with Hunter's appetite. I think Hunter is probably most definitely in here someplace. And that's redacted out. That's for sure. Yes, COG was on the list. So was JF is somehow on the list. As the court is aware, I need this a little too intense. Jeez. Where was I now? Okay. As the court is aware, this defamation case involves that she and other females were recruited by defendant to be sexually abused by Jeffrey Epstein under the guise of massage therapists. Apparently, there's like little girl massage therapist. I mean, the whole thing is so creepy. It's like, a lot of these girls, like something is really strange. I don't know how you could get involved with something like this. Roll is one of the main women who Epstein used to procure underage girls for sexual activities, and a primary co-conspirator or participant in his sexual abuse and sex trafficking schemes. And I think that's pretty accurate for Maxwell. I mean, she was his bottom bitch. He was pimping out these girls, and she was the head bitch. And she would recruit them in and convince him it was normal and be like, oh, look, my titties are out. You can take your titties out, all this shit. Very, very disturbing stuff. I think she should get the electric chair, but that's my opinion. Now, notice a lot of this stuff is redacted. Was found to be Epstein's longtime friend. During the interviews, Miss Maxwell was involved in seeking girls to perform massages, and somehow this is redacted. You must date esoteric now and save him from constant tranny porn he watches. Who's watching tranny porn? Yeah, I would imagine they're current government officials, and that's why they're blacked out, because they're given some kind of, or related to certain active government officials. Despite instruction from the court during her deposition, defendant refused to answer many questions related to sexual activity with or involving Jeffrey Epstein, with or involving the plaintiff, or involving or including massage with individual defendant knew to be or believed were known to might become known to Epstein. The result was that the number of points throughout her deposition, defendant refused to answer questions about subjects integral to this lawsuit, including questions about a student blank. So this redaction is to protect one of these underage girls. So, who defendant recruited from her school to give massages to and have sex with Jeffrey Epstein under the guise of hiring her to answer phones. So, is it fair to say that you recruited this high school student to be a sexual slave for Epstein? This has already been testified to by Mr. Bowie. We are repeating testimony now. I think in context of the witness answers there for a question. If you want to go to the judge, we're happy to do that, but I would suggest an interest of moving it along. Let's see. Miss Maxwell, that blank, end up giving up messages to you, Mr. Epstein. I'm going to instruct you not to answer the question. This has been previously the subject of your former deposition. I wonder what this includes. Because that everything is redacted in this includes there's more to this than just protecting this young girl who was involved in this line of questioning. I mean, this is pretty extensive redaction. And you wouldn't redact specific testimony and the name. It doesn't make sense. There has to be somebody who is involved in this. That is why it's also getting redacted with this unnamed defendant. With this unnamed victim, not defendant. In the wake of this specific deposition testimony from blank, during her own recent deposition, defendant continued to refuse to testify about blank massages and sexual activity with Epstein. Did Mr. Epstein pay blank for massages? And then it's the lawyer. You just asked this question. I told her not to answer. I will tell her not to answer again. Do you know how much Mr. Epstein paid bank to give massages? Same instructions to witness. Because of course reference to massages, because I think of how much the girl blank was paid to give a massage goes to whether there was or was not sexual activity involved. The witness has testified there was. Perhaps I will surprise you. I think It should not, and I do not believe in my deposition. I need to simply accept her characterization without cross-examination. That's something the judge can decide. How much this young girl was being paid for a massage, I think goes directly to the issue of sexual activity, yes. Additionally, defendant refused to answer questions concerning sexual abuse involving herself. Mr. Epstein and blank described in Vanity Fair article. Okay, so this is another redaction that's probably related to an earlier. Mr. Epstein and blank described. Let me look up Vanity Fair and Epstein and see who comes up. This could be a probable candidate for the redaction. Bill Clinton put pressure on Vanity Fair not to cover Epstein allegations. Of course he did. Trump supporters very worked up about Jeffrey Epstein list. Well, that's in Vanity Fair today. I think Trump actually comes out looking pretty good because as far as the testimony that I saw, most of the girls claimed that they never saw Trump at any of these places where the girls were being trafficked. So it was not a bad look for Trump. So far, anyway. So far. Let's see. The talented Mr. Epstein, I think, is the article in question. Let's see. I could put this in the other window. I'm going to look through Vanity Fair. And let's see if we can find it. If they were named in the article, though, it's strange that they would be redacted out. But maybe there's an allusion to them and not an actual name. Let's see. Oh, it's not going to let me see it? I need the unredacted version. God damn it. I need the unpaid version. How could you make people pay for an article? It's almost 20 years old. It's 20 years old. 2023 is over. See, this is Vanity Fair clearly covering for Epstein. Breaking news. I can't believe there wouldn't be an archive of this article. Here we go. Surprising, 1989, private school. Amid a flurry of manservants attired in sober black suits and pristine white gloves into someone's private Xanadu. The imported from England in a manner of Jean de Despite personal statements, Jeffrey Epstein 50 admits to friends that he likes it when people think of him this way. A good-looking man resembling Ralph Lauren with thick white gray hair and weathered face. He usually dressed in jeans, knit shirts, and loafers. Let's see. Oh, copious quantities of Earl Grey. Okay. All very pretentious and planted, it seems. Description of this guy. The largest Persian rug you'll ever see in a private home. So big it must have come from a mosque. Which reflects the work of French decorator Alberto Pinto. Who also works for Jacques Chirac and the royal families of Jordan and Saudi Arabia. So Alberto Pinto is named, and I don't know if he's on the list I'll have to research that, but keep that name in your back pocket. Because that's one name, and that's one name I haven't seen mentioned. Epstein lives, reputed to be the largest private dwelling in New Mexico. 7,500 acre ranch named Zorro. It makes the townhouse look like a shack. Jeez, you gotta wonder how big that house is. Epstein recently threw President Clinton, Chris Tucker, Kevin Spacey. Of course, Kevin Spacey. Anybody surprised by Kevin Spacey? Chris Tucker, Supermarket, Ron Burkle, Lou Westerman's grandson, Casey Westerman, and a few others to explore problems of AIDS and economic development in Africa. Okay. Like he was an expert in that. So we got a lot of names here so far. He's very enigmatic. Says Rosa Monckton, former CEO of Tiffany & Co. in the UK. So there's a lot of names dropped in this article. Even acquaintances, curious dichotomy, yet he lives like a modern Maharaja, as Leah Kleeman, one of his art dealers, puts it. He's my daughter of late disgraced media baron Robert Maxwell is simply his best friend. She's not on his payroll, but she seems to organize much of his life. Recently, she's making telephone inquiries to find California-based yoga instructor for him. Paula Heald-Fisher, a former associate, Bear Stearns, and now an opera producer, and Ava Anderson Dubin, a doctor and one-time model. A lot of names mentioned in here. I'm going to have to almost make a list. Include newspaper publisher Mort Zuckerman, bank Louis Ranieri, Revlon chairman Ronald Perlman, I think it's pronounced, real estate tycoon Leon Black, former Microsoft executive Nathan Pritzker, real estate personality Donald Trump. Sometimes seem not all that clear as to what he actually does to earn his millions. I'll tell you what he was doing to earn those millions. You won't find Epstein written about on Bloomberg or talked about in trading rooms. The trading rooms don't seem to know him. It's unusual for animals that big not to leave any footprints in the snow. George Soros, unlike some fund managers, is George Soros or Druckenmiller, whose client lists stock maneuverings act as their calling cards. Epstein keeps all his deals in stock maneuvering. Epstein keeps all his deals and clients a secret, bar one client, billionaire Leslie Wexner, executive chairman of Limited Brands. Epstein insists ever since he left Bear Stearns in 1981, he managed money only for billionaires who depend on him for discretion. From Epstein, I was the only person crazy enough or arrogant enough or misplaced enough to make my limit $1 billion or more, he tells people freely. According to him, the flat fees he receives from his clients, combined with all his skill at playing the currency markets with very large sums of money, have afforded him the lifestyle he enjoys today. Except he doesn't know anything about foreign trading. He doesn't seem to know anything about it. How mysterious. He invests these people's money and makes them millions that way, but seems to know nothing about the trade that he supposedly made his billions in for other billionaires. I'm very curious. Why do billionaires choose it? Trustee, because the problems of the mega rich, he tells people, are different from yours and mine. His unique philosophy is central to understanding these problems. Very few people need any more money when they have billions of dollars. The key is not to have it do harm more than anything else. You don't want to lose your money. Jeez. He likened his job to that of an architect who specializes in remodeling. I always describe a billionaire as someone who is out in a small home And as he became wealthier, he has add-ons, and he added another addition. He built a room over the garage until you have a house that is usually a mess. It's a large house that has been put together there over time, where no one could foretell the financial future and their accompanying needs. It makes it sound as if his job is a real estate agent, accountant, lawyer, money manager, trustee, and confidant. But as with Jay Gatsby, myths and rumors swirl around Epstein. A lot of names mentioned. Brooklyn's Lafayette High School. He was good at mathematics. He got a job teaching physics and math at Dalton. Yet he doesn't seem to know much about physics. The elite Manhattan private school. I don't know. If he was as bright as this is making him out to be, I've read this article before, but it's been many years. He doesn't seem to know any of the things that he does. If you notice the pattern. He began tutoring the son of Bear Stearns chairman Ace Greenberg. How convenient that happened. That seems very coincidental that he would just so happen to be a physics tutor for Ace Greenberg's child. He's very convenient. Under the mentorship of both Greenberg and current Bear Stearns CEO James Kane, he did well enough to become a limited partner. How does that happen? A rung beneath full partner. He abruptly departed in 1981 because he said he wanted to run his own business. That's not mysterious at all. That just happens for physics tutors, I guess. He was a bounty hunter, recovering lost or stolen money for the government or for very rich people. He has a license to carry a firearm. For the last 15 years, he had been running his business, J. Epstein & Co. Leslie Wexner, 1986. Others say it was 1989. He was gradually on the way. Generally made headlines. Come to be accepted by the establishment. He's a member of various commissions and councils. He's on the Trilateral Commission, the Council on Foreign Relations, the New York Academy of Sciences, and the Institute of International Education. Very interesting. Henry Rosvinsky, former Dean of Harvard Faculty's Arts and Sciences, and Larry Summers. So that goes back to Harvard. Harvard's current president, Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz says, I'm on my 20th book. The only person outside of my immediate family that I send draft to is Jeffrey. He doesn't know Jeffrey, by the way. Just remember that. He doesn't know Epstein at all. Complete stranger. He just sends all copies of his books to him, besides, his family. He's the most important person. Real estate developer and philanthropist Marshall Rose, who has worked with Epstein on projects in New Albany, Ohio. The Wexner says he digests and decodes information, blah, blah, blah. Former Senator George Mitchell and a gaggle of distinguished scientists, most of whom Epstein has helped fund in recent years. They include Gerald Elderman, Marie Gellman, Martin Boak. Okay. Gellman rather sweetly mentions there are always pretty ladies around. Oh yeah, we know, bro. And they were all underage and being pimped out to you. And you were paying oodles and oodles of cash in blackmail. Both Nowak and Dershowitz were thrilled to find themselves shaking the hand of the man named Andrew in Epstein's house. Andrew turned out to be Prince Andrew, who subsequently arranged to sit in the back of Dershowitz's law class. Nothing to do with Epstein. Dershowitz doesn't know him. Complete stranger. Prince Andrew is coming to his classes at the suggestion of Epstein, and he's meeting him at Epstein's house. No, he doesn't know Epstein. Complete stranger. He didn't even like the guy. I didn't think this article was going to be as interesting as it is, but I'm getting my list of names. Unfortunately, there's many, many names mentioned in this. see. I wonder if it's one of these guys. Let's see. If there's any. How much of it, this is all about how much of a genius he is at managing finances. I'm sure that's for real. I'm sure that wasn't all completely made up. Let's see. This is an interesting. Model types have been heard saying that they are full of gratitude to Epstein for flying them around, and he is a familiar face to many in Victoria's Secret's girl. One young woman recalls being summoned by Ghislaine Maxwell to a concert at Epstein's townhouse, where the women seemed to outnumber the men by far. These were not women you'd see at the Upper East Side dinners, the woman recalled. Many seemed foreign and dressed a little bizarrely. This same guest also attended a cocktail party thrown by Maxwell that Prince Andrew attended. Prince Andrew all over this. Randy Andy. I'll have to fucking play that song, Randy Andy, which was filled, she says, with young Russian models. Some of the guests were horrified, the woman says. He's reckless. As a former business associate, he's gotten more so. Money does that to you. He's breaking the oath he made to himself that he would never do anything that would expose him to the media. Right now, in the wake of publicity following his trip with Clinton, he must be in a very difficult place. Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure he was in a real difficult place. Here, we'll play Randy Andy. I got to take a piss. Oh well. Back into it. Capture this fully here. I hope people are keeping a list of all the names in this Vanity Fair article. There are at least 30 so far. Okay. I'll play this while I take a pass. Then I'll check in on the chat, which might be dead. I don't know how many people are actually going to watch this.
1968, and the world is in turmoil. B-52s, napalm, Vietnam, Soviet tanks roll into Prague, and civil rights marchers besiege Washington. Meanwhile, in South London, that's he paved the.
All right, okay. That's the whole. That's the Randy Andy song. Long history of fucking everything that walks. Prince Andrew, Randy Andy. Long history. I think that's why I think they stripped him of everything now. Bots where you buy two and get one free. Let's see. Highly disturbing. Fun fact: when JF contacted Jeff for a grant renewal, he was instead offered a good position handling Victoria's Secret models, which he declined as eFame bug had bitten. Is that true? Dominic, is that true that JF was offered a position managing Victoria's Secret models? And he turned that down too? That's kind of all of that is shocking. The whole thing is shocking. It's a shocking statement. 50 bots watching. Epstein didn't kill himself. The women outnumbered the men. PPP and Worski definitely weren't interested in those parties. Let's see. Boogie was a favorite on the island. Everybody talking about bugs? We gotta look this up. I gotta look this up now. Hold on a second. Let's see if this story is true. Epstein. Let's see if I can find anything about this.
Hello, everyone.
No.
This program is intended for mature audiences and may contain some material that is not.
Okay. I found it. All right, let's see. Pull this out. I'm going to guess this is what it is. I'm going to guess. He wanted JF to give him information about how to clone himself, I guess. Or how to get a potato. Maybe JF learned how to seduce potatoes from Epstein. Just curious. See this.
Wait a minute.
Oh, wait, this is like commentary over this?
Now, in
what show is this? Let's see. Does it tell you the fucking JF show that this is so I could actually watch that and not these guys talk over it? Can you give me the link, Domina? Can you tell me where to find it? Let's see, when is the date on this? November 29th. Okay, hold on, let me look this up. November 29th. The public space. Odyssey. JFG tonight. And this was on. This stream was on November 29th. So let's see. November 29th would be how many days ago? $32, $33, $34, $35, $36, $37 days ago. It's Odyssey does everything by fucking days. Okay. See, it's got to be this one. All right, nope. Too bad on Christmas stream, Jeff. Yeah, I know. There was no JF, Mama JF cooking.
This is where AI woman come in of everything that I oppose to. I'm not gonna spend time on physics at all. 2 words, Tucker Carlson, alt cinematography. My alt friend was telling me you have to watch 2001 Space Odyssey. It's a great movie.
Is this
It's
it?
going to be a generation of women.
If you violate,
what do you think the
It's got to be this show.
Bidenomics?
Oh, no, it's not. I lied. JF5. Streams too much. So it's got to be creates baby AGI. All right, ask me anything. Here we go. It's got to be this then. No, this is November 22nd. This could be it. I'm really not sure. Actual truth. Ask me anything. I guess I'll go through this one.
That was crazy.
Okay.
But I also didn't let this money influence me.
Okay, this has got to be. This is it.
Niagara Falls Bridge as a terrorist attack, but it turned out that software that I can deploy on my servers, because I have plenty of resources. Like I could probably stream to you at a lesser delay.
Epstein offered Perspic a job
It's
handling
just a matter
plus-size
of
male
having the suite
swimsuit
of
models.
software, and I could go on my own website and have a stream. Fun to be on. So that's generally the problem, because technically, but they aren't super conflicting was to fall. I would hope that a new generation of software then would have
He talks so damn slow.
the more the world heads toward fiber optic, to be for the lazy to work. Okay. Learning Better says Javier Millet appeared at WEF to make a speech condemning the criminal crimes and fuck them in the ass. And that's what I don't like about the knee-jerk reaction against Javier Millet by the hard right, let's say, who are like, oh, you've been on the WEF, therefore you're cancelled. John Drake says he's crazy enough to be real. Exactly. And am I not crazy enough to
I know there is nothing in JF's video to date them or
$25,000?
anything particularly topical in the title.
I am.
You can't tell them apart at all. Everything is exactly the same, even the hairdo.
Let the people show their art. And the art
JF's a little more bald
inserting
now. That's how I tell.
long stick into someone's ass so that they have ass pain going forward as they walk publicly, that is something we must respect. I'm not saying Javier Millet is certainly
he talked about accepting money.
them. That is all still standing, and it is still something that we must fix. Now, have I healed from these injuries? Yes.
I want to see what he's saying.
You partly feel relieved because this has allowed you to have more children overall and with more females.
Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so this is about Mama JF. Ooh, another Mama JF update. Okay.
Partly relieved, but not happy about it at all.
He's partly relieved, but he's not happy about it. But he's partly relieved that he can impregnate more women with his children, his projects, joint projects, children.
It's relieved. Like any good thing that happens in your life, it can compensate for the bad things in the past, but it doesn't compensate the evil that was done to me. It doesn't compensate the fact that these women were evil, the fact that they had a system ready to listen to their false allegations and believe them. That is all still standing.
How many different baby mamas JF got?
That we must fix. Now, have I healed from these injuries? Yes. But it's not because you heal from the injury that the person who injured you is forgiven. There will never be forgiving for these women. They will go to hell if hell exists. And it's relieved is a tough word to use in these contexts.
Yes, he's like, relieved
if I
that
try
he
to
can get
kill
more
you
Diet
with a
Pepsi
knife and eventually you heal. Are you relieved that you ended up healing and having all those beautiful moments in life? Well, yes, but this healing has nothing to do with the initial act of aggression. This doesn't lead to a forgiving of any kind for what was done. That's how I see it. End of the line, Joel says, Jeff, before the end of the year, could you review your predictions from last year? It might be worth a short segment on your show.
Is that me?
I don't even remember what were my predictions. That could be an interesting activity to do.
That's Odyssey for you.
Was it a thumbnail that I made? Would it be identified as such? Is there a special show in which maybe it was the Christmas show? I'll have to browse back and see what I've done then. We are in November, so it should be about 11 months ago. What did I do in the Christmas period? 11 months ago. Okay, lobster laced belly wrapped ribeye. Oh my god. That was
Bri for JF's
crazy.
co-host? I don't know. JF doesn't do
I'm
co-hosts
trying
anymore.
to show it
Fortunately
to
for
you on
Bri.
the screen.
Maybe Dymo. I know he's trying to court the Dymo.
Happy New Year.
Even though, does anybody know what happened, Dymo? Has he completely disappeared again? Has he just taken off? Seems to be the cycle with him.
Lobster laced ribeye. Lobster laced belly wrapped ribeye. My god. I had bought a $200 and more ribeye piece, full ribeye of the beef. I had inserted a lobster in it. I had wrapped the whole thing in the belly of a pork. Oh my god, that was insane.
No Christmas dinner this year. Just a
that was
reminder.
Absolutely insane. I cannot believe
Reminder
that I've
of
done this.
Great
the pork belly was good. The pork belly had integrated some beef flavor, some of the truffle sauce flavor that I've put on it.
Okay.
Some of the lobster that was
truffle, lobster, and ribeye, and pork belly. It sounds like a mess to me. I don't know.
Stuffed into the whole thing. It was the best pork belly I've tasted. But of course, you have a lobster dripping its taste into the pork belly. Of course, it's going to be good. So you say you think that my predictions were stated on the Happy New Year episode. Something about your Bitcoin funds that will be opponents. It's going to be very slow. I don't expect them to become liberal again, but I think we're going to slowly enter that in 2023.
Wow, look at JF. Wow, look at JF. This is the beginning of 2023, and now this is in 11 months. Holy shit, JF. It's not good, bro.
Thomas says JF
looking much healthier when Mama JF was still there. Jeez.
It really opened in 2015, 2016. How it becomes very hard to argue that we are living in a free society. And they also self-destroy. By doing this, they destroy the prestige of their institutions like YouTube. So I think that the leftists are bound to realize that their authoritarianism doesn't work, that we are the future actions, and 26. That we saw with the Israelis this year. I mean, there I am telling you, they're going to get loose. Over and doing for 6 months of what the leftists have been doing with their pursuit of crypto, with their overly done prosecutions of Trump. You ask me to evaluate my predictions, I will give a 100% on this one. By the way, I've predicted all sorts of other things across the years that came to be. I've predicted the wave of censorship that would come hard. I've predicted the release of it. I've predicted now here the...
We're getting to Epstein?
The abusive behavior of the left as they get too confident, not being as hard and intense as they used to be. And so this will open up for an exciting, probably return of a Trump-like cycle.
He almost sounds like an AI bot, doesn't he?
The Trump-like, and that would be nice if that can happen. But we're certainly seeing a Trump-like cycle in the old Elon Musk stuff. That cancel culture has turned toward trying to shut down. And he is the new target now. He is the guy who companies don't want to be associated with.
Didn't he bring up money?
Trump from the new Trump-like cycle. Now, Trump himself may also be... I think it's going to start around the election 2025 and see if we'll to early and engaging freely. And I have people replying to me right now that would have never replied to me 2-3 years ago. So they are becoming complacent. They think they can win on the free market of Elon Musk.
Dominic, is this the right video? Because there's nothing in the description or anything to describe what's even in the video. Let's see. Have you covered anti-white terror? Let's see. I'm trying to go through the comments to get some kind of timestamp or something that confirm that Epstein is brought up in this. These fucking comments are nuts. JF monitoring several dating websites over the last few years and found that 2 years ago, nearly 100% of women profiles stated political status as liberal. Now nearly 100% show political status conservative or left blank. Such herd creatures. Your thoughts? Let's see. It was painful when those women left you. Everything is about like the first 5 minutes. No ID. Well, I'm going to have to look for that. Because I don't see. It looks like that's the stream too. Because government money comes in behind to act as a buoy for magic. Look at all these comments. Jeff does get a lot of comments. I'll give him that much. They're all nonsense, but he gets a lot of comments. Mama Jeff proving that you can disappear if you want. 10 is a big place. You can hide in if you want. By wishing you're a murderer, they're wishing that Mama JF is dead. Well, there you go. Am I going to have to listen to this guy? Let's give it a listen.
In certain contexts, you can say that and you can be like, yeah, I got this motherfucker to send me $10,000 and then I sent it to, a combat.
Yeah, I guarantee for something. No,
but much anti.
I hate to keep derailing, but he said something very telling there. He said, I didn't let this money derail me. How much money?
Okay.
Money was it?
$25,000.
Yep.
Jesus,
where
fucking
is he
Christ!
It was to start a YouTube channel, by the way, and like promote science.
Ties to
That his neuro.tv thing.
Let me plug in that. See if I can find it. I'm being an idiot, not using my brains. Try to share. Ties to Epstein. Because I actually want to watch this.
This program is intended for mature.
And that's what I.
Oh, okay. I got it.
This program is intended for mature.
Javier Millet. You don't want to take the fact that he was linked with these globalist organizations.
Yeah, I'm an idiot. I don't know. I must have skipped over where.
And WEF and that kind of stuff. You don't want to take all of this and hold it against him forever. Because it could be that at some point, a messiah would come, a kind of enlightened asshole who decides to fraud the system a little bit the way I did to Jeff Epstein. Like, I got Jeff Epstein to send me money. And I'm super proud of this. But I also didn't let this money influence me in the direction that I was taking. And eventually I came to take a direction that was very much anti-globalism and anti basically everything that Jeff Epstein was. So you have to leave space for contrarian minds to make it into these systems and fuck them in the ass. And that's what I don't like about the knee-jerk reaction against Javier Milei by the hard right, let's say, who are like, oh, you've been on the WEF, therefore you're cancelled. John Drake says he's crazy enough to be real. Exactly. And am I not crazy enough to have asked Jeff Epstein to send me $25,000? I'm not. I am. That is what I mean. I am. Thai Odyssey sends a super chat. He says,
Okay, so I did get the right video. I'm just an idiot and skipped over it because I'm pretty tired. Let's see. So there were a lot of names on here. Like even the Vanderbilts are on here. I mean, Rolls Royce, Wendy Bellsberg. I mean, there are so many people named. I'm never gonna. I mean, it's a good reference point, I suppose. But I got completely derailed there. Got completely derailed. Sexual involving herself, Mr. Ekman and blank, described in the Vanity Fair article. I wonder if that's the one of the models that were described in that article. It's curious. What do you have on the girls? Epstein would ask the question over and over again. What I had on the girls were some remarkably brave first-person accounts. 3 on-record stories from a family, a mother and her daughters, Maria Farmer, Annie Farmer, and their mother, who came from Phoenix. The older daughter, an artist whose character was vouchsafed to me by several sources, including the artist Eric Fischel, had told me, weeping as she sat in my living room, on how Epstein had attempted to seduce both her and separately her younger sister, then only 16. He'd gotten to them because of his money. He promised the older sister patronage of her artwork. He promised the younger funding for a trip abroad that would give her work experience she needed on her resume for a place on an Ivy League university, which she desperately wanted and would win. The girl's mother told me by phone that she had thought her daughters would be safe under Epstein's roof. Sure you did, sweetheart. Why is that not look? Hold on. Does the stream have the wrong thing on it? No, never mind. Tried to warn you about sleazy billionaire Jeffrey Epstein in 2003. Vicky Ward, January 6th. See. I'm asking these questions because these are people who not only have been publicly written about in terms of sexual activity, that they were put into a connection with Mr. Epstein, but the person who wrote about them is someone who talked to the witness about it, and I think that is more than easily understood. Cross-examination. Your question was, do you know whether or not blank? Huh. I just want to go back to my freaking the fair article and continue to read it. I'll do more examination on that later. I know the stream is very dry. Let's see, what time is it? We'll go 2 hours and then I'll end it. I mean, I haven't gotten through a whole lot of these papers. Let's see. You're not entitled to know why I'm asking questions. You're only entitled to know if it relates to the subject matter. I don't think the judge is going to think that, where Mr. Epstein shipped blank off to outside of the scope of what I'm entitled to inquire about. This is curious. Defendant's counsel also stopped a line of questioning in which defendant was asked if she recalled several girls blank brought over to give a massage to Epstein. The court will recall that blank. Redacted. According to a defendant's recent deposition, Ms. counsel attempted to follow up on this subject. Have you ever heard of the name blank? Redacted. I don't recall that name at all. Then why is it so heavily redacted? That seems very interesting. Those names are on Exhibit 26, which has already been gone over, and she said she didn't recognize those people. So now we are just repeating things that we went over. I'm in contact of seeing if I can refresh her recollection, because these are the women that blank, who she also does not recall, brought over to Mr. Epstein's residences. And I also want to make a very clear record of what her testimony is and is not right now. And if you instruct her not to, you can instruct her not to answer if you wish. Based on defendant's refusal to answer questions related to specific girls, Mr. Rose was forced to discontinue asking questions about these victims. Defendant also refused to answer questions concerning the sexual activity of others, including involving or including a massage with individual defendant knew or believed might become known to Epstein. She refused questions about the records she kept of the young girls who would perform massage and sexual activities with Epstein. So this is all about that. I'm curious why this specific portion is all redacted. Is it protect the victim, or is it to protect a specific name that's mentioned in relation to that victim? I'm not sure. But it does claim that they're referenced multiple times in Vanity Fair. Master Physics Daddy involved in weird AF project. Mom JF Nutso rants about traveling to observe UN mass migration patterns that somehow end up in a pedophile basement club parties. How she snared JF. I wouldn't be surprised to find out Mama JF knows how to something submarines and airplanes like Ghislaine. Oh, pilot. I hate that little heart mark. I gotta make sure that's off on the next stream. Excuse me. Miss Maxwell giving a massage to Mr. Epstein. Massage from blanket underage girl who is 14 years old. That blank is available on Tuesday. No one for tomorrow. Blank is available Tuesday. So they really don't want to talk about whatever happened with this 14-year-old. That much is clear. Accordingly, the messages and girls described therein are fully within the ambit of this court's order. Okay. It's important to read this at least this first document sets up the whole rest of this. So it is really important to read this in detail, every part of it. Also refuted answering foundation questions that are necessary to proceed, questions authorized by this court, such as interesting that three of the 4 reasons why this is redacted. That's very fascinating to me. In terms of preparing this for this episode, what documents did you review? And 11, wait a minute. There are other individuals that had called during that day. When you would see female names and telephone numbers, would you take those numbers and match it to a person, a witness? We would do our best to identify who that person was. Question. Imagine this is the attorney. Is that one which you discovered the identities of some of the others of what soon came to be known as victims? Correct. Did you find names of other witnesses and people that you knew to have been associated with the house to those message pads? Yes. And so what is the evidentiary value to you of the message pads collected from Jeffrey Epstein's home in the search warrant? It was important to corroborate what victims had already told me as to calling in and for work. And some defendant refused to answer important questions relating to the following topics that were authorized by this court order. Defendant's information relating to knowledge of the circumstances of blank G. Oh, there was a G that wasn't redacted. Performing messages and sex acts upon Epstein. This is interesting. Circumstances of somebody whose last name ends in G. That might help me narrow some things down. I'll have to remember to file that away in my brain. Defendant's information relating and knowledge of the circumstances relating to the abuse of blank by the defendant Epstein. Defendant's information relating to the knowledge of any lists or records of girls who gave massages to Epstein. Defendant's involvement in the massages. Showing defendant's knowledge of and involvement in scheduling of underage girls for massage and sex with Epstein. Any destruction of evidence related to those messages. Fundamental questions that were necessary precedent and asking questions authorized by the court order. So, court should compel Ms. Maxwell to answer questions in topic areas where she refused to answer during her deposition. Okay. Proved that defendant's statements to the press that Virginia allegations were obvious lies was in itself an obvious lie. Well, no shit. Question defendant refused to answer fall squarely within this court's earlier order. Defendant can give no legitimate basis for obstructing the search for truth by refusing to answer. Court should again compel defendant to answer all these questions. Let's see. She did obviously know all this stuff and was clearly lying. Okay, and we're at the end of this order. All right, let's go to the next one. I'll go to 2, and then I'll wrap this up. But the curiosity of this is fascinating. Let's go to the next main document. Everything for a second. Find what I'm looking for. Gahul only has a private whack shack on a PR island. Many such cases. David Copperfield is also very suspect with a private island in the Bahamas. Yes, I agree. You got a whole ancient Egypt architecture aesthetic going on. Let's see. All communications with 13 specific witnesses, namely Jeffrey Epstein, Virginia Roberts, blank, Alan Dershowitz, So all of these names are redacted. That is interesting. I don't know why they would redact these names, especially if they were brought up publicly. That's a lot of names to redact. I mean, a 14-year-old girl, well, that was 14 at least at the time of, you know, a sex crime being committed on them. I could understand why you would redact something like that, but Miss Maxwell conducted a thorough search of her email systems and her devices prior to her production on February 8th, 2016. All documents were reviewed by counsel, neither on a privilege log. Litigation March, April 2016. This court limited the scope of number of requests, and Miss Maxwell later produced, pursuant to court order, documents that originally had been withheld pursuant to privilege. As of April 18th, Miss Maxwell's production of documents responsive to plaintiff's first request for production of documents is complete. Plaintiff serves second set of. Okay. All documents concerning Virginia. Any contracts with agreement for legal fees to be paid by Epstein. Documents concerning public statements made by Miss Maxwell. So I'm guessing this is kind of like her rebuttal. Plaintiff's proposal included astoundingly broad terms. Paramore, both name of Miss Maxwell's nonprofit and redacted. Terramar. Let's look up Terramar and find out what that is. Terramar, both Miss Maxwell's nonprofit, and what I'm getting for Terramar is, let's see, Terramar Project was a self-described environmental nonprofit organization founded in 2012, United States, by convicted sex offender Ghislaine Maxwell. Sister organization to the United Kingdom was incorporated in 2013. Announced closure July 12, 2019. This was shortly after New York federal prosecutors arrested Maxwell's close associate, Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was a financier who was being charged with sex trafficking crimes for a second time. UK was also officially dissolved the 3rd of December, 2019. Terramar Project was founded 2012. Blue Ocean Film Festival and Conservative Conference in Monterey, California, and focused on 64% of the ocean that lies outside any single country's jurisdiction. Their mission was to create a global ocean community around the idea of shared ownership of global commons, also as high seas or international waters. Maxwell also spoke at the United Nations as founder for Terramar Project. She accompanied Stuart Beck. Presented Arctic Circle Assembly. Scott Bergerson said Terramar's board of directors for 2013 appeared with Maxwell Arctic Circle Conference. Questions were raised about what Terramar entailed beyond the high-profile appearance by Maxwell at the United Nations and on TED stage. In 2017, an executive at a maritime firm made multiple requests for project funding to Terramar's development director, Brian Uratzis. They were ultimately denied despite Uratzis professing interest in having Terramar sponsor the project. The maritime executive who made the request stated that, "My impression was that Terramar as a whole was pretty hollow, and it seemed like Brian was the entire organization. On the organization's IRS return, The organization reported that it owed $560,000 to Ghislaine Maxwell. It owed $1,300 credit card debt, and it had $10,000 in cash as of December 31st, 2018. During 2018, the organization had spent $5,000 for professional fees and $9,000 for website development, $11,000 for advertising, and $270 in banks fees, but it spent nothing towards program services. So it doesn't sound like it did much of any. It sounds like it was a shell company to me. Let's see. Scott Borgerson, listed on Terramar's board of director for 2013, appeared with Maxwell, Arctic Circle. I already read this. Council of Foreign Relations, titled Governing the Common Oceans, Growing Challenge, New Approaches. Terramar's commitment to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals was showcased by the Clinton Global Initiative. Shocker. Tax documents consistently list Ghislaine as the organizer's president. Address was New York City. Form 990 tax filings. Later filings showing Woburn, Massachusetts. New York Times reported that Terramar gave out no money in grants between 12 and 17, and also described as having unusually high accounting and legal fees for an organization of its size. This is like a giant Ponzi scheme. This is completely fake. So that's what Terramar is. Basically a shell environmental nonprofit. Which is, for some bizarre reason, all redacted, but I'm beginning to get a picture why this would all be redacted for Terramar. Part of Miss Maxwell's last name, as well as her paternal relatives' names. Miss Maxwell's initials. Common words such as hotel, suite, villa, bed, bath, and lingerie. Plaintiff originally, remember, and this is redacted on their rebuttal, so it's even more strange. Plaintiff originally proposed terms also failed to relate to actual discovery requests based on what they were based. Let's see. Wild card character searches, even though, as described above, there were only 13 specific witnesses for whom plaintiff had actually sought all communications. For example, plaintiff wanted the names redacted, searched. Yet there is no RFP related to those names, nor vast majority of others listed first and surname. Nick Maxwell's counsel specifically identified problematic terms, agreed to limited list, and requested substantive conferral call on this issue. Why? Because you were feds? Because this was for the federal government? What would be the grounds to not discuss any of these people? That's kind of strange. Let's see. I can agree to them in the interest of getting the search done on a timely basis. Having heard nothing from the plaintiff's counsel by the close of business on July 15, 2016, Ms. Maxwell counsel ran the 110 plaintiff proposed terms on the forensic images of Ms. Maxwell's electronic devices, email accounts, including both. Interesting. So those are also redacted. Electronic devices, including both. Must be some kind of personal, must name a house or something. Because of the breadth of the 110 terms proposed by plaintiff, the original search resulted in approximately 9,000 documents and communications. Volume documents, breadth of terms. Thousands of underwater photos relating to Miss Maxwell's non-for-profit. the word passport due to the fact that Terramar Project includes an ocean passport program as well as numerous family holiday photos. Well, of course they would request those photos because those photos have all of these people in them that are, possible people involved in a sex trafficking fucking ring. Of course they want the photos. All documents are reviewed individually by counsel. Plaintiff also requires searches of old email accounts of defendant blank. Ms. Maxwell has been able to access the blank account, and it contains no responsive documents. Ms. Maxwell was been unable to access blank and does not recall ever using that account. Conveniently redacted. Documents concerning Mr. Barton have been added to privilege log. Let's see, failure to confirm, underside. Finally, defense counsel also reiterated a request for court-ordered conferral, again offering times to confer that would permit any additional terms to allow documents reviewed and production of non-privileged responsive documents. I wonder what exactly, I imagine they're saying it's all communiques with a legal team, I suppose. I mean, I don't know what they could really claim business. I mean, she wasn't married to Epstein. She can't claim that as privilege. Is Worski on the list? I don't know. We're reading. I'm going through just the main documents right now. I'm on the second one, which is their rebuttal here. That justification was clearly lacking because crimes included names like Dory Lewis, who was a lawyer for witness Johanna Shodberg, and whose wife works with Miss McCauley. They also included plaintiff treating physician Karen Kudikoff, plaintiff's literary agent Jaron Weisfeld, and plaintiff's mother, blank. Why would that be redacted? That's kind of an odd thing to redact. Plaintiff's mother, Detective Joe Carey, Mr. Edwards' law partner Scott Rothstein, and countless other people who would have no knowledge of any massages nor otherwise related to the discovery request at issue. It's telling. Plaintiff's mother redacted. Miss Maxwell already had run the plaintiff's proposed terms related to massages, including massage, masseuse, masseur, and therapy. In effect, plaintiff proposed search terms sought to expand her discovery request from communications with discrete set of individuals to all communications with anyone that the plaintiff believes was or might be a witness, although no discovery request called for such communication. She also agreed to supply witnesses who she believed truly might in some way relate to massages and submit that. I mean, this is all proven to be lies. That's why it's very fascinating to read. Miss Maxwell does not believe that searching these terms is appropriate because, for example, the names include a journalist, Vicky Ward, Mr. Epstein's elderly secretary, and various business people that formed part of plaintiff's false narrative regarding her sex trafficking, and searching for names in absence of topic. Well, this is kind of a giveaway on certain things, isn't it? Because, of course, all of this turned out to be an obvious lie. She was convicted of sex trafficking, so I could say that. Miss Maxwell did not infect against forensic images of Miss Maxwell's computer and her email accounts. A second search yielded 284 additional documents, each of it were reviewed individually by counsel for Miss Maxwell. Again, not a single responsive non-privileged document was located, and the vast majority of documents were pleadings from this case. Well, that's how they're trying to say privilege. The complete list of terms run against Ms. Maxwell's electronic devices and email accounts are agreed to by parties attached. In addition to her home and work email address, plaintiff also requested that Ms. Maxwell access 2 other email accounts that plaintiff believes are associated with Ms. Maxwell, specifically redacted. Interesting. Very, very interesting. Ms. Maxwell has used the redacted account as a spam account. Oh, very interesting indeed. An account address to use when registering for retail sales notifications and the like. You're a fucking billionaire. Clearly a lie. Well, she's a $1 million heiress. I mean, does she really need a fake email to register for sales notification? Nevertheless, undersigned counsel gained access to the account and searched all the documents contained therein, including folders for inbox trash and sent. The email account contained no responsive documents. She probably deleted them all. Ms. Maxwell does not recall ever using an account with blank, redacted. She has attempted to unsuccessfully access that account. Counsel's own attempts to access the account yields a message. The email address you entered is not an blank email address or ID. It's not a redacted. What? I would imagine that would say valid. Why would that be redacted? That's very interesting that that's redacted. Counsel for Ms. Maxwell has no reason to believe that the account exists. Wherefore, counsel for Ms. Maxwell, through a certified forensic examiner, has imaged the hard drives of Ms. Maxwell's devices, imaged the servers containing emails from Ms. Maxwell's personal and business email accounts, search for forensic images for search term proposed by plaintiff, including 110 first lists and additional 66 terms searched on July 19th. Counsel for Ms. Maxwell has reviewed the documents and obtained from searches described above, as well as thoroughly searched the email account. Redacted. No additional response non-privileged documents were identified in that process. An updated privilege log reflecting communications with Mr. Barden have been produced by plaintiff. Okay, we're back. Okay, so here's the proposed search terms and a proposed method. Okay. She chose to waste much of her time modding Reddit. I wouldn't be surprised if she had other lame, useless hobbies. Michael Aquino's mother was also one of the first people to be in the Gifted Children program. Look up Walter Breen for one of the worst individuals to come out of the Gifted Children program. Epstein was also in the Gifted Children program. Like many other of the sus lords, were recruited into intelligence and pedo activities. Plus, there were periods of her life where she wasn't financially secure after her father's death. I know about that, at least according to the official record. Yes, she fell into some real hard times. And I believe her father lost a major civil claims, and a lot of the inheritance was squandered as well. IMAP capable software to capture all of the sent received emails from Ms. Maxwell's various email accounts, included but not limited to the following: Gmax 1 at lmax.com, gmax1 at midspring.com, and other accounts at midspring.com. Mindspring. Excuse me, not Midspring, Mindspring. Any of Miss Maxwell's email accounts associated with the Terramar Project, including any account ending in the TerramarProject.org, and any other email accounts either used in the past or currently in use. So clearly, this Terramar Project was directly involved in the trafficking. They desperately want to get in there. I'm curious as to what exactly they were doing. But it sounds like they were using that money as payment for a lot of these young women under, like business expenses. To ensure that defendant captured her data from her electronic devices, Ms. Goffrey requested, please use file seek software or functional equivalent to retrieve any data, including electronic documents, PDFs, Excel sheets, etc., from Ms. Maxwell's devices, including personal computers, work computers, tablets, and any phones. This includes any cloud storage. Wow. See, but there's a problem with all. Obviously, she could have just deleted these email accounts. They're like, listen, these email accounts. It's funny that her lawyer, very interesting, goes, listen, these email accounts, they don't even exist anymore. We tried to access them and it came back, they don't exist. Very interesting. Ms. Goffrey requested that defendant apply search term in such a way that they would yield documents responsive to Ms. Goffrey's request in such a way wherein responsive documents would not be missed as a result of defendant's behind-the-scenes maneuvering with syntax of search terms specifically Ms. Goffrey requested. When applying the search terms need to hit on documents even if the terms are embedded within other words. So, for example, the term acuity would yield a hit on the document even if the word in the document is acuity reputation. It seems very specific. To return a hit on those embedded terms, I requested that you use wildcards to ensure that embedded terms are located. Wildcard characters are used to expand word searches into pattern searches by replacing single or multi characters where there are a specific number of characters needed to be included. A single wildcard will achieve that purpose. This actually is very smart. I use this method all the time, actually. For example, in some programs, apostrophe is used for a single character wildcards and asterisk is used for multi-character wildcards, for instance. Accordingly, the below search terms are submitted with wildcard characters to be applied in a manner of examples above. Please apply them as such with whatever characters is required by software platform you will be using. Let's see. In this case, counsel for defendant has not disclosed to counsel for Ms. Goffrey the number of hits yielded by terms in which they object. It is unclear whether or not defendant's counsel has run the terms which they object to see what sort of results are produced. That would be a way to immediately eliminate conflict by, instead of running the terms and then objecting to the material, you just object to the terms, and therefore there's no conflict. You can't accuse somebody of covering up a crime they don't know about. It's a wise defense strategy, honestly. Without taking that step, defendant simply cannot put forth valid objections to Ms. Joffrey's proposed term. Many of Ms. Joffrey's names listed in defendant's Rule 26 disclosure. Under Rule 26, individuals likely to have discoverable information. Group down by omitting first name to search terms. Let's see. The remaining terms are as follows. Okay, this is interesting. Dynamic Jeff, Joff, Epstein, G vacation, Jew, J wildcard W, wildcard JEP, wildcard. J wildcard with Jeep, Roberts, G wildcard FF, wildcard, asterisk, Virginia, Jenna. Redacted. PAJEGM AD. Massage masseur, therapist. Copter, chopper, pilot, manifest, log, flight, passport. Southern District, Palm Beach. State attorney. Acuity, Victoria, secret. Looks like Allen is what they're trying to search for. Dersh. Dersh was on the search terms. Very interesting. New Mexico, NM. Virginia Island. USVI. Little Street, Little Saint J. LSJ, Lago. I'm guessing that's for Trump. Police, cop, FBI, federal. Bureau, sex abuse, toy, dildo, strap on, vibrator. I don't know what that would be. SMW, slave, erotic, servitude, high school, secondary school, campus, license, assault, juvenile, seal, joint defense, or joint defendant, maybe? JDA, roundhouse, brill, illegal, immune, prosecute, law enforcement, Jane Doe, hospital, hotel, suit, villa, model, actress, France, Paris, Zorro, ranch, Vanity Fair, a lot of redacteds, Kessel, Churcher, Edwards. These all seem to be names. So these are all redacted names. Pottinger, Recary. As you remember, some of these names were mentioned in that Vanity Fair article. Alessi, underage minor, Daily Mail, Daily News, lie, obvious lie, sex toy, nipple, schoolgirl, oh, this U.S. with ATT, United with States, Guggenheim, pedophile, traffic, bed, bath, masturbate, ejaculate, masseuse, and lingerie. This court is aware, huge numbers, including many names, in order to catch documents that may be responsive to defendant overly broad requests. She did this without being asked by defendant and without being ordered by court, so that she could make robust production and fulfill her discovery obligations. Therefore, the number of search terms is not overly burdensome. I kind of agree that most of these probably would hit a result for his activities that would be in discovery. Defendant be rejected to run terms set forth above and court creates instructions reiterated above so that relevant data is captured. However, that says protection long after the close of fact discovery would be ultimately official, according based on defendant's systemic foot dragging and obstructionism during entire discovery period, and based on prejudice to Mr. Offered concerning late productions. All right, there's our second document. Let's see what the response is to this. Declaration of Laura A. Mathis. in support of defendant's submission regarding search terms. Ah. Duly licensed. Let's see. See what the exhibits are. Meredith Schultz. Meredith Schultz. Miss Maxwell's laptop, computer, mobile phone. I'm gonna have to go through all this evidence after. 6,000 documents were captured using search terms. Apart from privileged documents related to this case, none of the documents captured were responsive to plaintiff's discovery request. Well, shouldn't they be submitted? The Carter reviewed approximately 3,500 documents that were captured. Apart from privileged documents related to this case, none of the documents were responsive. I reviewed all documents contained within the blank account, redacted account. There were no responsive documents contained in that account. I also reviewed iPhone and iPad that but does not use for email. Here we go. Let's see. This kind of goes over what we already know. We've already seen all of this. Oh, there's a lot more redacted. Maybe it just looks that way. Up, there's 3 more things, I think. Oh, Macaulay Schultz. I object to the vast number of 368 search terms. Most are not tied to any request for Miss Maxwell, nor the court orders limiting those requests. Terramar. While searching our client's Terramar email address for otherwise responsive documents, the search term would pull up thousands of documents related to her work for that organization, which are non-responsive or irrelevant to this action. We will not agree to do this standalone search term. Very interesting. They will not agree to use Terramar even as a search term or produce any documents. With regards to search term numbered, and simply broken apart the first and last names of every witness included. Plaintiff, redacted, will include those names within our searches. As other names included on the list, many are incredibly common names, which are asking to search as standalone terms. Divorce from accompanying surnames or first names, you have included the name Max, well aware that that's our client's surname. Let's see. Research terms include, the court has already ruled maintains an attorney-client relationship with our client, and to the extent that, well, that's true. I imagine it's a lawyer. I don't know why that would be redacted, though. If it was a lawyer's name. Was captured by the search of other names. Redacted. He is not on any witnesses list. Let's see what they do. We have included a number of common items and places. Southern District, Palm Beach, New Mexico, USVI, United States Virgin Islands, I mentioned. Hospital, hotel, suite, villa, Paris, France, Zorro Ranch, Bed Bath, lingerie. Many other words have no relation to this case. Please advise me as to which RFP they respond to. Good faith basis. Abernathy, Brillo, Guggenheim, Herbal. Huh. I don't know. Those last four seemed very specific. Oh dear, Mike's super fan of them Maxwell's and for some reason pals with many DR streamers. He was also Dershowitz. Yes, and Dershowitz. Well, all right, let's continue. Let's see. Did anyone search Cernovich in the new logs? Ike Cernovich. Oh dear, Mike. Yeah. We're going to have to... I don't think Cernovich is in these. I haven't seen Cernovich ever brought up, but he might be a redacted name for all that we know. They claim that for avoidance of doubt in your proposal, excluding all these items that are, I guess, listed above here. Unless, are there more? Let's see. You have Terramar. I will endeavor to have my client gain access to an Earthlink account that you believe is hers. Your basis for that belief is a disk you produced last week to obtain pursuant to a Freedom of Information Act request that contained at page 2035 an address book from approximately 2015, which has that Earthlink account name next to Miss Maxwell's name. Well, it sounds like it's her account then, bitch. Terramar, you have withdrawn that as a standalone search term. I have represented to you that we have searched all Terramar for otherwise responsive, as well as redacted witness names. You believe that search term? There's some redacted. It looks like a 4 or 5 character term too. Witness names. You believe that search term? 124 through 341. First and last names. I have search terms massage, masseur, and therapy, etc. as you have requested, but would still like me to search a subset of certain wishes. I said I would look at your list and when send it, evaluate whether I still object to running those more limited names to see if there are communications that relate to massages. I still object that the search terms involving names is too broad and burdensome for me to have to review all communications with those individuals to try to discern what may or may not relate to a massage. You have withdrawn with the exception of lingerie. You have withdrawn Abernathy and Brillo. I maintain my objection to Guggenheim, the name of a museum which you represented to me pertains in some way to allegation made by witness blank, but for which no documents or other information has been shared. Something happened at the Guggenheim. I have never seen any allegation by blank because there is no RFP to which I believe that term relates. It is in the name of the museum I object to running the search term. Well, then why would you reject to running the Guggenheim? I mean, how many times have they gone to the Guggenheim that you expect results for? What are they at the Guggenheim every fucking week? That doesn't make any sense. That seems rather specific. The Guggenheim seems rather specific. I advise you that I was not able to search for number blank, redacted. Number redacted. Because those letters are the first part of my client's long-standing email address and search for that term will yield literally every single email she has sent or received. I advise you that I was not able to search for initials to the extent those initials represent people. For example, Jeffrey Epstein, redacted. I am searching for and producing responsive document. For adverse, I am in receipt of your opposition to letter motion to strike your motion for adverse inference. The representative. I specifically informed you of the search terms that would run right from your list. Specifically requested a telephone conference on the issue of search terms pursuant to the court orders prior to any search. It seems like the Maxwell's lawyers are going out of their way to have nothing in written form. It seems they want to do a lot of talking on the phone in non-recorded conversation that probably are protected by privilege. I am writing you in compliance with the court order to negotiate search terms for search and compliance electronic devices. While Jeff raised many of these issues orally with Brad last week, I am including them in written form so that there can be no dispute about your position. I do object to the vast number of your 368 search terms, most of which are not tied to any request for production served on Miss Maxwell, nor a court order limiting those requests. Then we go back into we already read that. I believe that's just a copy of. This seems to be okay. I disagree with your objection that reviewing and producing any ballot is too broad a request or overly burdensome. Well, what are you getting paid for, bitch? I mean, let's be honest. These lawyers are getting paid like incredible sums of money. So what, you have to read through a bunch of documents. And then we have all the redacted things. Only Alessi isn't redacted. To ascertain that the blank is no longer in existence. Similarly, please keep me informed of your steps to access redacted. Please pursue all available avenues to access those accounts. iPad as well as her phone. I'm pretty sure they did. One last thing. It occurred to me that our discussions of terms were run, not run, to be run, and not to be run. I don't believe we discussed the terms containing individual email account addresses, specifically Mr. Epstein and Mr. Dershowitz. If we did discuss that, apologies for my lack of memory. Specifically, these were the terms. Evocation and Dersh. Alan Dersh, please let me know if you have any questions. Please treat this email as confidential. Requested search, word, lingerie, and the blank. We have completed the forensic copy search retrieval review for clients' devices, email accounts as directed by court based on agreed search terms, including those agreed to in a referral yesterday. More than 9,000 documents and files containing your search term. Only documents located not provenly produced are 6 privileged documents, which we will add to our log. We also located a number of privileged communication between our client and myself following onset of litigation, which will not be logged, consistent with both parties' agreed practice. As predicted, no responsive non-privileged documents resulted from the exercise. X to doubt. I will be apprised of the results of lingerie, status ability to access the blank account. If you want me to consider running additional witness names because you believe those people may refer to RFP5 regarding messages. Please forward those names. I'm looking for inconsistencies in the redactions, but they're pretty consistent on the redactions. Okay, and that's the end of this document. Well, I'll go back to this. It's late. It's 2:30. Thank you for joining me on this shit stream. I'll probably delete it. But or maybe I'll unlist it. I don't know what I'll do with it. It's very boring, I'm sure. But I wanted to go over some of the Epstein stuff in my mind and go through everything, and figured I might as well just do it on a live stream. Talk it out. I was hoping you guys would, I don't know. Maybe you guys have brought up stuff that's interesting to me that I'm going to have to look into now. Kanye went to AJ's screaming how much he loves AH and Balenciaga mask, and DR contingents flocked behind the effort. We're way past Clown World. Yes, I agree. Well, good night, everyone, and thanks for coming out.